Like this morning, this news regarding Maresca and him being looked at for the Man City potential candidacy if Pep Guardiola leaves, and it just tells you a lot. It gives you information that this guy and his work, when it comes to his vision, his style, um, it's appreciated not only by a certain fan base, but other fan bases. I mean, this is Man City we're talking about. One of the most dominant English teams in recent times, and they're looking at him. Obviously, there's possibly other people on that list, but him being high among the candidates. I mean, I'm talking. This is not just being among the candidates; he is high. So then that just tells you that he's very highly rated by not just Chelsea fans, but by other European teams. And Man City being one of the big ones, it comes as no surprise, because this guy worked with Pep when he won that treble in that season, and Maresca was, I guess, one of his assistants. Went on to Leicester City, he won. So this guy basically has won wherever he's been at, whether he's been the manager, assistant manager. He's been part of a winning culture. He's been part of a winning team, and it's honestly crazy that we could potentially have this guy walking away. And again, if you look at the structure at Chelsea right now, and you look at the structure at Man City, I mean, there's only one team you could really want to go to. Man City just have a structure set, and they have quality everywhere. And they tend to back the manager as well. Us, on the other hand, we tend to go opposite of everything the manager asks for. So would I be surprised if he decided to go to Man City? I mean, not really. Would he just be able to just go to Man City? No, they would have to pay, some money to get him out of his contract, because he's contracted till 2030. So, the compensation has to be hefty. But it's like, bro, why would I want to just take 20 M's to lose one of the best managers in the league? I'm sorry, it just makes no sense. So whatever that payout might be, whatever that buyout might be, I don't need it. I need a good manager at my club. Yes, Maresca hasn't always gotten it right. Yeah, but neither has Pep either. Like, Pep is one of the best managers we've ever seen in this game. And even when he came down to a Champions League final, he played without ADM. So they all make mistakes. Mourinho makes mistakes. They all overthink it at times. Can Maresca do a bit better with the options he's being given? Absolutely. I think he could get more out of this team, but we could also argue that he's really overachieving with this team. Like, a team that hasn't had Levi Colwell, hasn't had, Lavia, hasn't had Cole Palmer for most of the season. We've only been really relying on Joao Pedro as the number 9. Delap has been non-additional in a sense. It's just, this guy's actually really overachieving, if we're being honest. Being that he's only 7 points behind Arsenal, who have one of the best defensive records in the league and in Europe, behind a Man City team that is starting to really hit a nice rich vein of form, and they have one of the best managers ever in Pep Guardiola, behind an Aston Villa team that, yes, they've been winning 9 or how many games have they won now in a row? I can't even keep count. And they also have a really good manager in Unai Emery. So this guy is actually really pulling trees, being ahead of teams like Liverpool, being ahead of teams like Spurs, which, to be fair, it doesn't really say much if you're ahead of Spurs, but it comes down to the fact that we can't let Maresca go. Honestly, the sporting directors have to go first. Like, they have to be the first ones out the door, gone. Because I'm sorry, they just haven't done much. Initially in the window, I thought this transfer window, if when I put it in perspective, I thought it was maybe like a 6 or a 7, only because A lot of the areas that we really needed, revamping, they did that. The defenders, they could have definitely given us better defenders, way, way better defenders, and they just never did. So I would say with the defense, yeah, they really, they messed up on that one. But with the midfield, I thought they brought in, Andre Santos got back from, his loan. Asugo was signed in to be cover for, Caicedo, Enzo. So we went into the season with 5 central midfielders. I mean, I thought, and that's enough depth. Now you've had Reece James also playing in there. You have Malo Gusto, who also plays in the midfield position. So you could say the midfield does have enough cover. How good of the cover is it? Well, we haven't really seen Lavia stay fit. And Sugo hasn't even played one Prem game at all. He hasn't even played a game. So we can't even really see how good, the deputies for Enzo and Caicedo could be. Sugo could turn out to be a really good find, a competent midfielder. We've seen Santos in games. He's had good moments. He's had bad moments. But again, this is like a lot of these guys in this team. This is their first season with the team in general. And you always got to give people time to adapt, get used to, how the team wants to play. A lot of these guys also came from different countries as well. So you have to adapt to, the life, in England and in English football. I've seen people say we downgraded on the attack. And, in a sense, it's like, yes, Nicholas Jackson got me, 15, 14 goals first season, got about another 10 the season after that. But he just wasn't good enough anyway. It's not that Liam Delap is any better, but it's just Delap really hasn't had that much consistency. If we're talking of number 9 strikers, I would have just preferred a player who is just a number 9. For me, I would have still taken Delap over Jackson. Jackson had other invaluables that he added to the team, but I thought we could do better. Potentially for me, I would have just kept Jackson in general. Keep Jackson, have Delap as the backup, and then have Joao Pedro as your 10. That's what I would have did. Jackson didn't want to stay. It is what it is. You're looking at other strikers that have come into the Prem. You're looking at your Gyökeres, your Seskos. These guys haven't really hit the ground running anyway. Players that have been bought for expensive money. Gyökeres, like I said, Sesko, not great. People want to talk about the likes of Ekitike, Walter Made. We couldn't afford these guys. People will make the argument, well, the money you paid for Gittins and Garnacho, you could have gotten Walter Made, bro. We needed wingers. You understand what I mean? Like, it can't just be, okay, well, you needed Walter Made, so go get him. Yeah, but we also needed other positions that needed to be filled in. How much did Newcastle pay for Walter Made? I believe over 70 M's. How much did Liverpool pay for Ekitike? Close to 90 M's. These guys don't want to pay that kind of money for these type of players. They just don't want to. And that's the unfortunate reality, but this is where we're at. When you're coming from where the team has been, bro, this is our first time in the champs. So you got to build some more credit in the bank when it comes to attracting some of these players. I heard someone say, why didn't Chelsea go for Rodrigo? Bro, Rodrigo ain't coming to this Chelsea team. So why are you even bringing up names like that? We couldn't get Osimhen, who wanted more than 300K. You think we're going to get Rodrigo? Why would bro, come on, like, so you gotta mention some realistic targets. Someone like a Cherky, you get a guy in a Cherky in for 30 mil, and he was gonna be interested in in coming to Chelsea, but it's always going to be, like people have said, Cherky doesn't have, the application. He has attitude problems, bro. So what? Like, players like Cherky, they're mavericks in this game. They're like your Eden Hazards, maybe not to that level, but they have that stardust around them. So even if the application defensively, ain't there, like Conte used to say, he makes everybody else do the job so Hazard can be Hazard. That's why you build a team that has your Williams in it, your Pedro Rodriguez is in it, your Matiches, your Contes, and let players like Cherky just do magic. You can look at players like that, but when you're talking of your Walter Mades, your Ekitikas, yeah, we definitely had interest in Ekitike, but they just didn't want to pay up the money for Ekitike. They thought it was it was overpricing, but in hindsight, maybe we should have paid for Ekitike. But again, that's it just feels like there's so many restrictions when it comes to spending money. You're looking at the whole thing with the Champions League squad. We couldn't spend more than the squad that was in the in the Conference League or whatever that nonsense was. So we really were handicapped. But how handicapped were we that we went to spend about 80, 90 M's on two left wingers? But then if you go and you spend your 90 M's on Ekitike as your forward, who covers on your left? You could play Neto there, but that's about it. Sancho had to go back. Noni was sold. Hell, we didn't even. You got Tyreek George. Well, I mean, what really is he adding to this team? So yes, this team has been built poorly. We brought in players that we thought and felt could add to this team. Garnacho is not one of those guys that, for me, I would have never brought to Chelsea. Not even just for the on-field application, but just off-field. It just felt like it was a lot more drama. But he's come in and has been decent, to say the most. You understand what I mean? He will add goals to this team. He will add assists to this team. But it's been a professional representation so far of the club. And that's all you can ask for. You look at someone like Gittins, he has all the quality, has all the talent, but the guy is still playing within himself. Like, Gittins is somebody that played for Borussia, Dortmund at a very young age, and he was playing a lot of games. This guy has experience and exposure in the Champions League. So someone like a Gittins, if he could just get his head out of his ass, he would actually be decent. He's just playing very shy and timid. You can't really do much with that. You understand what I mean? Even the likes of your Leaos. Leao could have been a good addition, but people talk about his work off the ball. Yo, bro, so what? Like, have your Caicedos and Cucurellas just be dogs, and you have your Leaos win you games. Leao can win you a game on his own. People talk about he doesn't score enough goals, bro. Leao's, he will add so much attacking quality to this team. But needless to say, this sporting directors shit the bed. They did not give us quality on quality. They gave us okay, options. And this is the unfortunate reality we're dealing with. But they have to go. They definitely have to go. These sporting directors, they got to be the first ones gone before we even think about letting Maresca go to Man City. It's just as simple as that. When you have other teams that are looking at your manager, who some of you guys don't rate, I mean, then that's on you, to be honest with you. But these directors have to go. I think this team, at best, with all the absentees we've had, and these key players in key positions, it's looking like it's going to be a top four thing. Like, it really is looking like it's going to be a top four thing. You've had Esteval, who's missed games. Delap has been absent. Gil just ain't he's not up for the challenge. Let's be so honest. Like, Gil looks like a nice, person who presses very hard, but when it comes to putting that ball in the back of the net, he needs too much more to his game to be that guy. Hence why and look, when Joao Pedro came in, when Delap came in during the Club World Cup, we saw, a different dimension to this attack. We saw more, it just felt like there was more accuracy, especially with Joao Pedro coming in, hitting the ground running, scoring 3 goals in the whole competition. He was just looking like that guy we've needed for so long, and he was playing with Palmer. We haven't really had Palmer. So again, when you think of it, it's like, all right, it feels like we still have a lot we could work with, and we need some of these key guys back. But in regard into just the options that Maresca has to work with, I think the squad is as poor as some people might make it? I don't think it's that poor, because I do think you still have enough to get something out of these guys. Like, you're looking at your Gusto, for example. Now he's playing in those midfield positions, and he's understanding the role a lot better. You're looking at someone like a Hato. Hato has probably played like 3 games and that's it. Like, they don't get games enough, which does mean the manager doesn't trust them to be good. But you sometimes you're not going to know until you really play these guys. Yes, the manager sees these guys in training, but Hato was one of those highly rated, young defenders in Europe. Your teams like Arsenal wanted Hato. Chelsea wanted Hato. I don't know if Liverpool wanted Hato, but he's one of those guys that was highly rated, had so many games for Ajax. So you could play him as well. And look, I get it. The manager makes the decisions on who plays. He probably seen these guys in training and he goes, you're not ready. And that's cool. But unfortunately, this is a squad depth that we have, and if we're going to be wielding out 11 changes in a game against like a team like Cardiff, bro, it's going to happen. Even before that game started, I said exactly how it was going to go. Cardiff were going to be on the front foot. They were going to bop us off the park. But at the end of the day, I was expecting us to win. And in the second half, the big hitters had to come in and had to get the job done. And we got the job done at the end of the day. It's a semifinal. It is what it is. But for me, I'm looking at this attack and I think we have upgraded this attack, because when you've seen the likes of Esteval, you've seen your Neto playing more consistently, and Garnacho has come in with his goals and assists. Even Gittins, to an extent, has added goals and assists to this game, even though they've been in cup competitions. But that's where you have a squad for people who can come in and contribute. Do I think Delap could be so much better? Absolutely. The guy has just been focused on beefing everybody else on the pitch and just focusing on his game. Because if he could really just focus on the game at hand instead of trying to just have everybody in a chokehold and in a headlock, you see a lot better. Like, that's still a good enough player in there to get you goals. I'm not expecting Delap to get me 20 goals a season, but can he get me 12, 13? I think he can in this Chelsea team. I think there's so much quality in this team where your goals can come from everywhere. Neto can get you goals. Garnacho can get you goals. Gittins can get you assists. Joao Pedro can get you goals. Cole Palmer will get you goals. Esteval will get you goals. Like, Esteval is a goal scorer. So in that sense, the attack, we have no problems with scoring goals. Like, we score goals at the end of the day. So this attack is going to get you output. But it's always about who's behind these midfielders. When it's Tosin and Chalobah, it's a long day. When it's Fofana and anybody, you're cool. When it's Fofana and especially Chalobah, bro, we've kept 5 or 6 clean sheets in as many games as these guys have played together. But it's certain individuals. They're just not good enough, especially our defensive options. Even Badiashile. In as much as I like Badiashile, he has mistakes in his game that sometimes are unexplainable. They just make no sense. That's just the reality. This is where we're at, people. The team could have been a whole lot better, but also feels like there's just so many financial constraints and you can't sign this person and you can't sign that person. So then they're going with the cheapest option. But then these cheap options ain't really cheap options either. We paid like 48 M's for Gittins. Like, that's not cheap. But it's always about this, they got the potential, you're looking at the data and it's just, at some point, data is not going to do much for you. So do I think this team could absolutely go and challenge for the league? We're just not ready. But I think in some games this season, the squad could have been used a lot better. Absolutely. 2 things can be, true at once. The manager could have did a lot with his team selection. But guess what? This is the team he has to play with. And if he doesn't feel confident that these guys can actually get the job done, then he doesn't. So it's a tough one, man. But at the end of the day, I'm going to back the manager because he's won me 2 trophies. He's guiding us to top 4 first season. He's guiding us in the top. And that was one of the biggest things about Maresca. Even last season, we legit were in the top 4, either top 4, top 5 for the majority of the season, mainly in the 4th position. Yeah, sometimes it will fluctuate a bit, but our average position last season, I think, was like 4th, and we made the Champions League. And he looks like, he's just continuing to do good work. Look at someone like a Sanchez. The manager backed Sanchez. Now Sanchez is literally one of the best keepers in the Prem. We can't even hate on that, but you got to back the manager with what he wants. He backed Sanchez. Sanchez has been giving him performances. You wanted center backs? Give him center backs. Give him center backs. But another thing about Maresca that I'll also say is, bro, when you see Tosin has been messing up, play Josh. Tosin is just a wrecking ball. How bad would it be between Tosin and Josh? Probably not that bad. That's just one of the things I'll probably say. Play Josh instead of Tosin, and just we live and die with those consequences, because Tosin is coming in and he's just messing up the whole balance. That's the only thing I would really say. If Cucurella, Enzo need to rest, let these guys get that rest. But then we're looking at the replacements that are coming in. Can Santos fill in for Enzo Fernandez? Yeah, he can. Maybe not to the level, but Santos can give Enzo a couple of games off. You know what I mean? It's just because Enzo has been terrible the last couple of games. Like, he's looking like somebody who's just not really in form. Let's just let him sit out for a little bit. Santos can definitely handle that position, but when Palmer's out, we ain't really got nobody else to play that role. Buonanotte, let's face it. I thought, and I still think Buonanotte as a player is a good player, but that's about it. Do I think he's going to give you the Palmer type of performances and numbers? No. I just think it's a body that will fit in, that will just give you something when he's on it. I mean, we saw that Cardiff first half, and my God, this guy was terrible. That first half, I wanted him out of that team immediately. I wanted Tyreek George out. I wanted Gil out. I wanted Gittins out. I wanted all these guys out. But second half starts, Buonanotte creates 2 good chances. 1 for Garnacho. Matter of fact, 2 for Garnacho, who scores from 1. And then he started to look like he was getting into the game. But that's because the big hitters came in. Your Joao Pedros, your Garnachos, who added a bit more to this team. But all in all, for me, I look, we got to do whatever we need to do to keep Maresca here. Back the manager. I just think if you give this guy better defenders, better wingers, he probably gets you to like seriously challenging. Hell, and then striker too. But you're looking at this striker market and it's draws. They just didn't want to pay for Walter Made. In as much as we wanted Ekitike, they just never were going to pay for Ekitike. That's really the that's the kind of bullshit we're on now. It's all about profit. It's all about, being able to flip somebody. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those things that makes Maresca go, you know what, I'm out of here. You've seen a lot of, noise in the media recently, him not feeling supported in the last 48 hours. And to be fair, man, he could talk that shit because he's earned it. Maresca has earned it to be able to say, I feel like you guys have just been not showing up for the team. And he should be able to say that without fearing for his job at the end of the day. I think he should be able to say that. So hopefully this is just, it's interest, but, we decide to make sure that whatever he wants, he can get it. And you know what? This might be a blessing in disguise, because this might actually make the ownership really wake up and go, bro, if we keep playing around, this guy is gone. This really might be that makes these guys wake up and go, all right, you know what? Before we were sitting on our hands, but if Man City want this guy, then maybe we start to, we need to start looking at, how we approach the market and actually listening to what the manager has. I'm not saying give him all control, because at the end of the day, not every manager has good talent ID, but at least give him what he's looking for. Give him the options. If you want center backs, present him with some good options and go with the best. Not your Disasi's, not your Badiashiles, not your Tosins. Give him better. Give him the levels of Fofana. Give him that. Give him better. Give him the levels of a Saliba and a Gabriel. Give him those kind of levels. Give him those kind of options, and that's just the reality. But Hopefully, this is just interest, and come the end of the season and start the next season, Maresca's still here. Because if he leaves, Areola and Glasner and these guys, I'm sorry, that's just not going to be it. It's going to be like a Thomas Frank situation all over again. Everybody rated Thomas Frank. Look at the job he's doing at Spurs right now. So if you know, you know. Yo, people, like the video. Hop in the comments. Let me know how you feel. Sub to the channel. I'm going to catch you on the next one. Peace.